Welcome to the Love Couch.
The channel where you learn how to have the life and relationship that you love through watching reality TV. But first,
Today's topic, it's a big one. Matt, you said in your coaching programs that it's one of the top things women come with is feeling like your man is emotionally unavailable. And I just want to start off by saying men are taught that. Men are taught to not be in their emotions. Does that feel true? You've shared that with me.
yeah, absolutely true. Absolutely. When you look at really young boys, they're as emotional and as expressive as young girls, baby girls, toddler girls. Um, 4, 5, 6, but somewhere around there, the lessons that young boys learn around emotions is to just keep them under wraps because they become a place where you can be teased, bullied. Expressions of emotions become a liability in the playground and in the classroom and in our families too. It's a survival mechanism to just keep our emotions under check. And there are some ways in which is very valuable to do that, to be able to put those emotions aside and just get on with
Of
the
course.
task at hand and have that focus. There's a balance there that's off, and in the relationships that we have today in our modern society, and that could be a whole other episode. Um, Men are being called forward into more emotional availability.
Which is why we were so excited to see the men bonding and being vulnerable with each other so beautifully in this season. Especially we see them crying, we see them supporting, we see them like empathizing, and it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah,
And one of the things that we, as we were talking about this emotional unavailability piece, availability or unavailable, is that these men were in a scenario where the normal rules don't apply. They're
yeah,
all together in this wild ride, as opposed to going to their jobs
yeah,
or defending themselves or whatever the things are where they've
yeah,
been taught to show up buttoned up and not weak,
yeah.
strong.
Yeah, and they're living I think it's 2 weeks that they have in the pods
Yeah.
where they have these periods of time when they're on the dates with the women that they can't see because the panel's in between, and the rest of the time is, like, hanging out with each other, and what is there to talk about? I mean, you can talk about your jobs and your families and things like that, but they're gonna be talking about their dates and their feelings and what went right and what went wrong and how it felt and stuff, and so they're just in this milieu of
No, that's just a
sharing.
normal one. In joke. If you watched our previous episodes, we'll link them here. We talk about how we pay each other for really good words. We wanted to be able to have takeaway things that women could bring back to their relationships with their men to help encourage them to be more. As we said, it's the number one thing that Matt's been getting in his relationship coaching, and I hear in a sideways with my energetic coaching of wanting the relationships in our lives to be more open and free and flowing. And so we thought of three things for ways to cultivate that emotional availability in your relationship, and then two things for you to do with yourself for your work, for how you're showing up in order to cultivate those
Yeah.
steps. So, step number one.
Step number 1 is to really appreciate and encourage your man when he is being emotionally available, even if it's the tiniest moment, even if you hear him laughing on a phone call with his friend. What?
Or if he's like welled up during watching a cheesy Hallmark Christmas special.
Yeah,
Like,
and
don't tease him. Be like,
don't
"Oh, babe,
tease
that's
him. That's
beautiful. I'm
beautiful.
I'm feeling that there too."
I think, yeah, that way of connecting through the emotions. How does it feel when he's in his emotions, and share that with him? Oh, I feel so close to you when you welled up.
He's let his armor down.
Yeah.
Don't take advantage of it. Connect with it.
So remember, emotionally emotional unavailability comes from a place of fear, comes from a sense of risk.
Yeah.
So the more you can create an environment where he feels safe to show his emotions, to express his emotions, the better it's going to be. And this is going to happen in small in small increments. It's not a switch that can be switched on, like I'm emotionally available, I'm emotionally unavailable. It's
You
it's
feel that way sometimes.
it's creating it can be like that way sometimes, it's true. But to create an environment where it's okay to be emotionally expressive.
Thank you. Which brings us to step number 2. And full disclosure, I got this from the revolutionary book that changed my life and how I deal with men in relationships called The Queen's Code by Alison Armstrong. I believe every woman needs to read this book.
And it changed my life because it changed your life. So
Yeah. He
yeah,
you then wanted to read it because he's like, "Why does this feel so different?"
yeah,
And as you were reading the book, you shared with me, you were like, "Oh my god, yes, she does this, she does this, she does this."
yeah,
And he then shared with me how it felt for him to be on the receiving end of a woman who had learned these ways of cultivating the relationship where I get to be a queen and then he gets to be in his king.
yeah,
So, that is called listening. Literally to let him finish. When conversations are a race to see who's right and to
yeah,
see who gets to dominate, nobody wins. I'm going to say that again. If you are in a race to see who is right about what needs to be done or who saw the right thing or whose opinion this or whatever, nobody wins. So it's a bit of a cliche about letting men finish, but honestly, we like it too. We love it when
yeah,
they listen to us and let us finish and share all the things,
yeah,
and they deserve that as well. So letting him finish looks like letting him kind of talk for as long as he wants to and literally sit on your hands and just shut the F up
yeah,
and just listen. And what they describe in the book that it was just blew my mind was the reason why he is often talking for so long is because he wants to honor the question he's been asked so much that he wants to go and give us every bit of gold that he has in this noggin.
yeah,
What a gift.
yeah,
Okay, I'll listen. I'd love to hear
yeah,
what genius you have for me and hear the mindset shift on that too. I'm not impatiently waiting for my turn or listening to his bullshit. No.
mhm,
I am like, okay, I love this man and he has gold for me and I'm going to listen. And every time it also contributes to our connection which then has him listen to the things that I also have to
yeah. And
offer.
and for us men, it can take a bit of gears grinding and turning to find the words that we want to say. Um, and it might not even be in that moment that we're going to find the words. We might
Mm,
need a day to ruminate on something. We might need to speak a whole bunch of things before we kind of arrive at the truth
mhm.
of the matter for us. And I'm aware how frustrating that that might be.
Women can be a little quicker.
Women are quicker. There was a study done that I read about many years ago, and they put cameras up in a kindergarten room, like
Mm,
a co-ed kindergarten room,
mm.
and I think it was before there was like video, so it was just a series
Like
of just still
stills?
images.
Mm.
So the camera took, over like a period of hours, it took a whole bunch of stills. In every image, like the girls' mouths are open
'Cause they're
because they're
talking.
talking. Um, and in every image, most of the boys' mouths are closed most of the time. And so there's a different way of communicating. There's a different way that women communicate together and that men communicate together. So different expectations. And I know as a man, I can feel really put on the spot and pressured
Sorry.
when there's not by you, darling,
Sometimes.
sometimes, but generally not. To like come up with the thing, like there's been a question or I'm expected to respond in some way, and I'm just my my brain then locks onto the fact that I'm not answering quickly enough, and I'm just feeling the pressure, and that shuts me down even more.
Mm.
It starts to feel like a threat in a
Mm.
way.
I have a question.
Yeah,
So would it feel good if you don't have an answer to then like, could there be like a placeholder for a woman to ask for this to be like, it's totally okay if you don't know right
yeah,
now. Would it feel good to have like a couple days to think about it? Or
yeah,
when do you think you might
yeah,
like to and like let me know
yeah,
what you've realized?
yeah. I think that last one. Yeah, like when do you think you can let me know? well, when can we, when do you think we can come back and carry on this conversation?
Yeah.
Because that feels safer, that feels more, more possible. As long as I'm committing to doing that thinking in the meantime, yeah,
Yeah. So not avoiding.
not
And
avoiding.
then for women, it can feel like, well, if it's not right now, it's never going to happen because there is
Yeah,
some avoidance when things can get scary. But the more we can shift into, here's the energy piece, shift into the belief of a no right now isn't a no forever.
yeah,
That can be a huge shift for our nervous system to be like, "Oh, it's a no right now." So that means the answers are coming
yeah,
as opposed to it's a no right now, so I'm never gonna find out. Like,
yeah.
that is very stressful thinking.
Yeah, so sinking into more trust that there's a flow here, that there's a momentum here, that and again, I understand why that might be could be stressful, but just sort of allowing the relationship to hold a bigger space, that this question is going to be answered. It just might not be right now. It might be tomorrow, and know what, tomorrow you're probably going to get a better answer than right now.
Mm, that's gorgeous. Which leads us to number 3. If he's shutting down and, like, feeling put on the spot or doesn't know the answer or, like, getting a deer in the headlights or even getting grumpy, like, sometimes we protect ourselves by,
Mm,
like, pushing people away.
yep.
Then if you notice things shutting down to, like, manage your nervous system and then to make it a smaller ask. So smaller asks can be what you're actually asking or this time frame, right? If we have more time to do something, that automatically builds our capacity. So if you make it a smaller ask, then it might be more micro steps than you expected. There's been some things that I thought could just get done right away, and it needed a little longer. There's been
Mm.
things that you thought could get done right away, and I'm like, I need a little
Yeah,
longer.
yeah,
So
yeah,
letting an ask, letting it not be the end of the world. If something isn't happening, to trust the relationship, trust the bigger process, let the ask be smaller or more gradual, can let the pressure
yeah.
valve release a little bit.
Can you give an example of that? What a smaller ask might be?
Well, let's say you're new in dating and you want to, like, get to that stage where you meet each other's parents and he's not ready to meet the parents yet or something like that. And so that would be like, okay, he's not ready. Let's talk about a relationship. Let's talk about what timeline are you
Yeah.
seeing would be possible? Are you not seeing this as a serious relationship? Maybe that's something that would be good to talk about. So as opposed to pushing for the thing
Mhm.
that you want, you can then get curious about what's underneath it, or maybe it's
Yeah.
just going to look differently than you expected.
One of the things for men especially is trying to do things right,
It's
and,
not just men.
not just men, but I think, there can be a lot of shame, of of not being able to do the thing that's been asked
Mm,
of you by your woman,
mm.
and that can really shut us down. Shame often makes us quiet. Yeah, so that taking the smaller steps and giving more time, and discussing what those timelines are, so you're not left just kind of hanging in the void, because
Yeah.
that's not fair either. Yeah,
And if you notice at any of those 3 points that you were like, "I don't know how to do that. That feels weird. That feels stressful," you are not alone. And so we said we get to the last parts, which is the work you can do with yourself. And you came up with 2 really beautiful questions for the inquiry that we women can do with ourselves
yeah.
as we're trying to build this deeper emotional connection with men.
One of the scenarios that comes up in my coaching is a woman is like, he's really emotionally unavailable. Like, I can't get through to him. Are you emotionally available? Are you showing up in a way that's emotionally available? And sometimes the answer is, no, maybe I'm not. Do you have an expectation of how he should be in this relationship and how the relationship should be, but you're not actually contributing to the relationship in that way either?
Go back to this, like, meeting the parents example. So let's say I'm like, I'm ready. I want him to meet the parents, and this is amazing. I love this relationship. I want to keep moving it forward. So if I am pushing for that, there is a piece where I am not available to myself to feel this sadness of if that doesn't happen how I'd like. So
Hmm.
if I'm pushing for something, I'm like, but I gotta have this thing, but I gotta have this thing. Every time, if you are in a have to have this thing energy mindset, experience push, it's because you're afraid of the feelings that are on the other side of not getting it. And I'm so sorry, but that is part of being emotionally available, being
Mm,
emotionally willing to feel the feels of whatever's coming up in your experience versus I've got to have everything be perfect so that I feel perfect. So I'm happy all the time. That is not fair to put on you yourself and definitely not fair to put on your partner.
yeah. 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 Connected to that, I think, is the final point, which is, do you have judgments about emotional men, emotionally vulnerable, emotionally available men? How do you feel when you see a man cry? How do you feel when you're around a man who's showing his sensitivity? The patriarchy, which has suppressed emotional availability in men, has done its work on the women as well, where the men, one of the myths of the masculine is that we have to be buttoned down, we can't be emotional, we can't show our softer side, that's not masculine. And so there's many women who have that belief too. Oh, I don't want to be with a weak man. If you have judgments about male vulnerability, he's probably going to feel them, and it's only going to take the tiniest fucking moment, glimpse of you being, not you, but you being judgmental about his emotional expression, about his sensitivity, to be like, for him to be like, oh, this is not a safe environment for me to show my emotions, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. And those are good things to bring to a coach because every single reaction you have is a valid reaction based on your history.
Yeah.
And you will probably need to process those, heal those, shift that experience in order to not have your feelings and emotions be shattered by triggering. But then my feelings trigger me, but then that triggers you, which triggers me, which
Yeah.
we that's the gift of coaching is it gets to stop those
Yeah.
loops so you can be in your power, be in your feelings, be in your trust.
Yeah. And so there's an opportunity here, if you are a couple where as the woman you do have these judgments around emotional men,
Mm.
and if the man is emotionally unavailable, there can be a journey that you go on the same at the same time, which could
Yeah,
be a very beautiful, rich journey that will shift the foundation of your relationship.
I've done it. It's possible, I
Yeah.
promise. All right, so those are our takeaways of places to start, things to look at that you can do today in your relationship to keep expanding that emotional availability. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Like, subscribe, comment. We'd love to hear questions from you about this.